What was the biggest plot twist in your life? I was a mechanic, and my buddy had a PC at home. The manager of the shop asked if anyone knew computers, and I said I did, thinking that playing games on them meant I knew anything. Manager said, okay, you're going to a class and you're going to help with our computer upgrades. I've been in IT ever since, and then BSP. Also, I earn 4x what I made as a mechanic. I'm convinced that being able to Google makes you qualified enough in most small businesses. Finding out my mom legitimately thought I was gay, which was the main reason I had problems with finding a GF, since she would tell any girl interested that I was gay. Don't be hard on her. She really thought she was helping. Turns out my wife and I went to the same summer camp when we were kids and ran into each other on more than one occasion. Found out when I told her about a trip we took to a roller skating rink and we had to leave early because a girl got groped by a random stranger. My wife was the one that got groped. I was not the groper, for your information, but at the time I was we had to leave early. Reminds me of how two people went to Disney World with their respective spouse. They divorced their spouses, met each other, married, and then found a picture of them at Disney World. Played soccer with a kid that his last name was the same as mine, and I thought it was funny, but just a coincidence. Years later I found out my granddad had another family, and the kid I used to play soccer with was his grandson too. Remember being a kid and running into your parents' friends at the grocery store or restaurant? Well, my mom got talking to someone in line at a sandwich shop. I don't think I was paying attention much. When we go into the car, my mom asked me if I knew who that was. I didn't know, nor did I really care. She replied with, "That was your father's first wife." I had no idea my mom was my dad's second wife at the time. Handed in my paperwork to drop out of high school with 3 months till graduation to be a plumber. Was convinced to stick it out. Now almost finished up with a PhD in physics. Wanted to be a mechanical engineer since I was 6. Studied engineering at Purdue University. Got job as a data analyst and then a microbiologist upon graduating. Never had an engineering job or internship, but my work-life balance is exceptional. BTFU. Being cheated on and that whole group of friends knew about it and found it perfectly okay. Fear not, I discarded most of them immediately. I'm so sorry. Glad you can start fresh. A girl that gave me multiple speeches about how I had no friends and everyone would be better off never seeing me again was indirectly responsible for my meeting my entire group of friends twice. That's no plot twist, it's foreshadowing. Thought I was a person who had some issues with mental illness but was pretty normal. Was diagnosed with schizophrenia at age 34. It turns out I've been half living in a fantasy world my whole life. Was trying to live my life but couldn't afford to buy a house. The paperwork for a loan was too complicated. For a reason, I decided. Gave up and saved in a mutual fund. Subprime fiasco started and mutual fund was starting to drop. Sold mutual fund and put nest egg in savings account. Lost my job as the economy tanked. Worried for a while, then watched the meltdown. Waited 2 years for home prices to actually drop. Finally bought a short sale for cash 2010. Now comfortable and no bank controls me. Took some extracurricular math classes while majoring in art design in high school. Swedish high school makes you specialize from the start. Now finishing my PhD in biochemistry later this year. High school was still good though. Had fun with nice friends and still use the design stuff when making conference presentations and things like that. Would probably do it the same way again. My mom had been trying to set me up with a friend's daughter who I had never met for years. All the while I said no. We ended up meeting on our own and have now been married 5 years. 32 years old. Stuck in a horrible relationship. She wasn't horrible. It was just that we shouldn't have been together. Sure that I'd never meet anyone that really made me happy. That after the current relationship ended, I'd probably be alone for the rest of my life. Then I met the woman who is now my wife of almost 20 years. Falling in love with her wasn't like a thunderbolt from the sky. It was very much like, oh, there you are. Where the frick have you been? She is my absolute favorite person on earth, and I simply cannot imagine my life without her. She took a gigantic chance on me, on us. and it could not have worked out better for us or our family. Save a lottery win. That gives me hope. Thanks for sharing. 2007. Craziest year of my life. It started well, went to France with the French club, started dating the girl I'd been crushing on, and quit my horrible job at Wendy's. I went to San Francisco with my aunt's family that summer, and that's when things started to change quickly. Before leaving, that girl I liked quite a bit broke things off. When I got back, I left a couple days later for Honduras, church trip. While I was in Honduras, everything shifted. My dad lost his job, my mom's stepdad some weird flesh-eating bacteria, my dad's dad was revealed to have been cheating on my grandmother with a man, and on top of all that, I was witnessing for the first time what real suffering was. There was a weird depression and guilt that followed those revelations. When I got back home, my dad started flying places for interviews and moved 3,000 miles away. It was humbling to move into a rental home the following year. Even more humbling when my mom and siblings moved away also. I lived with a friend's family for a few months. It seems like all any of us have done since that year is play catch up, along with many other families, and I'm so exhausted. Holy crap. That's a decade of scrambling and reacting. I'm 27 and already tired of this 7-day work week. TLDR. We were part of the middle class that disappeared overnight. While in college, I worked in an establishment that attracted a lot of high school kids. Here and there girls would flirt with me at the snack bar, but I never took it any further than that. But there was one in particular who I knew was more into me than the others. I liked her too, but she was 5 years younger and it was never happening. But for 2 years she always found reasons to be in my area. When I graduated, I moved 1,000 miles away and never gave her more thought, until 20 years later, when my brother-in-law got married. The first time I met his wife, it was her, also in a city nowhere near where I went to college. She knew it immediately and almost fainted. I didn't really realize it until we got to know each other, and she reminded me privately. It all came rushing back to me. To this day, it's our secret. Nobody else in our families, including spouses, know the details of this. They only know that I went to college in her hometown and we frequented some of the same places decades ago. Broken heart movie script right there. Sorry, mate. Not my life but involves me. After spending all of her savings in the wedding, my cousin married for just 3 months files a divorce. No one of the family was expecting that. We thought she was happy in her new life. Born in Russia to a Russian mother and a German-Irish American father, moved to the US. In Wisconsin, grew up dreaming about owning a bar, running a brewery vineyard. Very supportive parents. Turns out I hate anything with an alcohol content. I never wanted to get married and I definitely never wanted kids. Met my wife when I was 20 and I'm now a happy stay-at-home dad. I've been a political junkie all my life basically, at least since I was old enough to be aware of it all. Got it from my grandmother, who was one herself. She practically raised me. In high school government was supposed to be the hardest class of all. All I heard from everyone was how everyone failed it or barely passed. Yada yada yada. I aced it. A+ all across the board. Everyone, including my teachers, were amazed mostly because my grades in other classes were crap. It was easy for me. I already knew most of it. So, come time to go to college, I chose political science as my major. Go to sign all the paperwork. A woman in the office told me political science was a junk degree. I'd never be able to do anything with it unless maybe be a professor. That sounded fine with me. I still want political science. She became perturbed that I just wasn't getting it. Stayed after it until she finally convinced me to go with something else. I had to think of something on the spot. She was telling me to choose something I could use to get a real job. Well, the agriculture industry is pretty big in my area and I did grow up on a farm. So I chose agriculture. Still didn't want to change. I had to go to another office to change my major. Told the woman there I didn't want to, but the woman in the other office made me. She ends up calling this woman, who then comes to the office I am now in and chews my butt out again about what a mistake trying for a political science degree would be. I eventually give in and go with agriculture. I didn't last 2 months in college before I quit. Have worked nothing but dead-end jobs my entire life. I often wonder how my life would have been if I had stuck to my guns on the political science thing. Raised as an extremely conservative Christian, young earth creationist, pro-life, hate the sin love the sinner type homophobe. Now, I'm bi, almost lesbian, TBH, pro-choice, and believe in evolution. I bought a deck of tarot cards and I'm dabbling in witchcraft and meditation and stuff for funsies. 12-year-old me would cry so hard. Engaged to my childhood sweetheart, pregnant with his child, lost it but didn't know I was pregnant, so you don't need to feel bad about this bit. Planning my future with him. Families met and loved each other etc. Plot twist. Went to uni. Discovered who I was. Bam. Lesbian. Most of my family has lupus and arthritis. All of my aunts and mother. Several cousins. My sister etc. Start realizing something's not right with my health and go to the doctor. Plot twist. No arthritis or lupus. I have a muscle disease and no one else in any of my extended family has muscle problems. I am a unique snowflake. It's never a lupus. When I got married we both thought and wanted for me to be working and her to be a housewife and raise kids. She makes more money than I do now. Moved to the other side of the country to get away from my mum. Best decision I ever made, never going back to the state I'm originally from LOL. I did the same thing but that's not really a plot twist. Being diagnosed with Wilson's disease 5 years ago. One day I pretty much woke up with signs of a stroke. Went to the emergency room. Got diagnosed. Now I have to deal with the symptoms for the rest of my life. I spent 4 years studying to be a programmer. I had a terrible experience, but thought I just had the wrong teachers. After 3 different programming jobs and being miserable at each one, I finally found out that I just hate programming. I'm currently trying to become a project manager. Turned out to be a trans girl. If I ran into my past self this would take a lot of explaining. We'd probably get some Persona 4-esque or not me crap going on. There's other things, but going from a sad nerdy small town college boy wondering why my life didn't feel right to being a 20-something girl living in the big city is a huge change. Upvote for the Persona 4 reference. Best game. I was about to leave a horrible relationship until I found out I was pregnant. Almost stayed together until our daughter's 2nd birthday. It stayed terrible until I left. He's a good dad but he's left me emotionally fricked up. Around 16 found out my dad wasn't my biological and my 2 older brothers were from a previous marriage. I was the only one in a family of 6 that didn't know. Getting kicked out of school for smoking weed and passing the joint to other fellow students. I thought my life was over. Ended up going to a better school and life carried on with an upwards tangent. I still smoke it every day and am in a well-paying job with a loving partner. I found out about 10 years ago, I'm mid-30s, that the reason I look so much like my uncle and less like my other siblings is because he's my father. None of brothers sisters know. I was bullied as a child to the point that my mom allowed my aunt, a teacher by trade, to homeschool me. Sophomore year, I decided to go to public high school. It was a small school where most people had known each other since kindergarten. Adjusting was hard. Junior year, I took musical theater for credit. So did a lot of the cheerleaders preppy girls class officer types. I lived in jeans and t-shirts. Still do. A group of 6-7 started always hanging out with me during class. They ended up inviting me to sit with them at the popular table during lunch. Given past experiences and stereotypes, I was pretty sure they weren't serious and would turn it into a chance to mock me in front of everyone. The next day, I asked to join them for lunch and was welcomed with open arms. Before I knew it, I, the sometimes socially awkward straight A student, was part of the crowd. My newfound popularity didn't end after the play was over. 10 years later, I'm still friends with the girls who reached out to me. In 2005 my parents and I had moved in together due to dad having had a stroke and mom needed the help to take care of him. We had just finished having our family Christmas party, about 35 plus people, and I was in the den watching TV and my parents were out in the living room watching their TV. Next thing I know I'm waking up a week later out of a diabetic coma. The previous 6 months vanished from my memory, including the part about me and my parents buying a house together. Out of those 35 family members, I am the only one with diabetes, which I had no clue I even had up until the coma. Now my short-term memory is a joke and I have to write things down to remember to do them. Now I get to inject insulin into my belly twice every day. Such fun. Oddly, what alerted my mother that something wasn't right was that she heard me making weird noises and she came into the room to find me having seizures and convulsions while bouncing around on the floor. She called 911 and the police were first to arrive. Cop came in and his first question was, "Where are the illegal drugs, moron?" Small town cop. Only pleasant thing about being in that coma was that in the hospital they gave me a spinal tap and I have absolutely no memory of it. Thought I had the girl of my dreams until I found her sucking some dude off in my driveway. We split, and I'm a much happier person without her. Took my first job out of college in a town relatively near where my so was at the time and moved there to be closer to her and move forward with our relationship. 3 guesses what happened the weekend after I started my job. I told my mom I'm gay like 10 days ago. I'm 25. Before telling her I thought she'd explode. Turns out she's pretty fine with it. She sulked for a day and now stuff is back to normal. Go figure. Found out my girlfriend was cheating on me. Was gonna propose that summer too. What a shame. Bought a lot of beer with the engagement ring money though, so that was fun. My father suffered from a debilitating and undiagnosed disease for around 19 years. He finally got a diagnosis and underwent extensive treatment for a year and a half. One day he decided to go to Disney World with my 3 younger siblings to celebrate his recovery. He died in his sleep in the hotel room the first night they were there. Was already in set to have babies with my fiance of a year and significant other for 5. We'd bought a house together that's literally next door to his childhood home and got a puppy together that would be great with kids. Owning his own home, having a dog, and having kids to pass on his name to were his dreams. And I shared all of them but the dog. I was and am still very much a cat person. They're calmer and low maintenance. Plus I was excited to get married to the man I loved. I left the city I grew up in and a really good government IT job with advancement opportunities so we could realize that dream together. I gave him the ring back last April because the spark died for me. After over a year of him neglecting me physically, emotionally, etc. And for him disrespecting me, I got to keep the house and dog out of the deal. Especially since said dog is my baby as I did all of the raising training of her. She was half the reason I realized I couldn't have kids with him. Because despite his absolute need to have a dog, he regularly ignored her signals that she needed to go outside and she always came to me for attention. He was never spouse nor dad material. He wanted someone to wait on him instead, and man am I ever glad to be rid of him. You're lucky as heck you didn't have kids. 1. Realized I'm trans in my late teens. 2. Found out that I have a half sister. I already knew I was adopted, so not much of a plot twist there, but finding out my birth father had remarried twice and that I had a sibling I never knew existed was a bit of a plot twist. Was always kinda good with girls but they were, let's say, average looking like me, and it wasn't very serious, just flowing through life never wanting anything serious, and one day I spotted her. It was like in those romantic movies where she shines in the crowd. Boy, when we made eye contact, she is a freaking 10, 1 cm shorter than me and I am tall. She is absolutely beautiful and hot, and the best part, she felt exactly the same like me when we first made eye contact. I usually never had problems talking with girls and calling texting jing on Facebook act, but I simply didn't believe in myself at this, and few weeks later she was the first one to message me on Facebook and rest is history. She even told me later she was also scared to message me but I was being a p and she was tired of waiting until I will message her. Now I have a beautiful fiance and I never wanted to marry or anything serious, but everything changed right then and there like in the movies. It's strange to think and hard to explain if you never experienced this. She is also freaking smart. You don't know how my friend's jaws and my father's dropped and they were thinking I am pulling their leg or something when they first saw us together. Tall 10/10 with DD cups, nice butt, perfect body. Also DD cups fit her because she isn't small, she is tall like me. They were thinking I am pranking them. My best mate that I know since diapers pulled me aside and told me tell me this isn't a prank, and I just said I don't know, maybe I am dreaming, I don't know myself. So the biggest twist, changing from party and carefree lifestyle to meeting someone that changed me in seconds. Got really upset when my ex told me he didn't want any more kids, had two, but he barely saw them. He left for several hours, eventually came home and broke up with me. Did not see it coming at all. Plot twist, realized several years later I don't actually want kids. Turned out for the best. He was a dong, and I should have run far away from that relationship a lot sooner. At 14, I found out from a mysterious night phone call from a man claiming to be my father that the man who raised me was not my birth parent. When I confronted my mother with the information, she dodged the subject until I turned 18 and she finally told me the whole story. Finding out my crush, who I was obsessed with for 2 years, who lives in another state, who I ghosted on Skype over fear of annoying her, and who I see 20 days a year, liked me too for even longer. Finding out that after 4 months of LDR I couldn't get over some of her quirks and over a little problem that happened while she was here, and fell out of love with her. At 21, realized I was trans and needed to dump the crappy guy I'd been dating for 7 years. At 23, had a psychotic episode during my first semester of grad school and had to drop out. I'm just starting to regroup after the second one, and they say bad things come in threes, so I'm just waiting for the next hit. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.